Well, knowing that you can, accessing your knowing, and this is what we invite people to with Access Content, you empowering people to know that and
Mm.
so I really would just love to, leave with saying that you don't have to do everything, know how to do everything, but what is it that is unique and different about you? If you're willing to acknowledge it, would actually invite more of those miracles and that magic, not only into your life, but open up that space for the world.
Welcome to I Think I Can podcast. My name is Luella Young. I am a woman who believes that we, like wine, get better with age. Age brings us wisdom, intuition, and a level of sophistication that is beyond the reach of youth. I am here to tell you that living a luxuriously rich and fulfilling life is in your reach. I Think I Can podcast will teach you to think differently in order to get different results. Allow me to show you how to do life effortlessly. This podcast is for the woman who is tired of playing by the rules of society, community, religion, parents, and partners. I Think I Can is all about becoming brave, authentic, purposeful, and strong. Listen weekly, and you will find yourself living a life you could have only once dreamed of. Thoughts drive our physiology, so channel your thoughts with me into a life truly worth living. Enjoy the show. Welcome back, everyone, to I Think I Can podcast. This is episode 22. I have with me today Kass Thomas. Kass is a global businesswoman and communication expert whose work is to transform the negative into positive, even in very limiting situations. And what I especially loved about Kass is that she focuses on better communication with yourself. Now, Kass is a US native living in Rome. And with all her travel and experiences, she realized that some communication issues are the result of misconceptions and has seen that this often begins with ourselves. How might this flaw show up in you? If you find yourself moving towards self doubt and self judgment, then you likely need to improve the communication channel from within. Cass helps others understand one another's perspectives to accommodate someone's ability to hear you, to invite people to greater possibilities, to open opportunities to obtain your goals, and to get clear about what you want from every encounter you can imagine. And with that, let's begin. So, welcome, Cass. So great to have you here.
Delighted to be here, darling. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, and you're a busy lady. One thing I have noticed is that you seem. Oh, I know COVID has kind of grounded all of us, but prior to COVID, and now you're just getting into it again. It looks like you travel a lot. I'm just going to ask you, do you enjoy it? And what is it about travel that you enjoy?
Yes, I enjoy it. And what I love about travel is visiting different elements of this planet, you know, visiting different places, meeting different people, engaging with different cultures and different languages, and seeing what parts of me are present in different places. And as
Nice.
I always love this sort of global approach. I've always, even from a kid, had that a global approach to life and living and multilingual. I just really enjoy it, even if I don't understand the language. I always know how to say hello, goodbye, thank you, or something in a language. So just really, there's so much more that unites us than separates us. That's the tagline
Mm,
from my 7 Steps to Flawless Communication book. And when you travel, it's the greatest quote unquote education that you can have. Yeah.
mm. I mean, that's one thing I was going to ask you about is that, your website, it speaks so much to, towards inclusion and multiculturalism. And so, like you're saying, you always had that love. I mean, I guess I should probably start off by asking you to tell our listeners a little bit about your story because you're a U.S. resident, born in Boston, and now you're in Rome, Italy. So I think we would all love to hear about that journey.
Yeah, well, it's so funny. My dad, I was born in Boston in this lifetime, Massachusetts, in Roxbury, a beautiful neighborhood about 10, 15 minutes from the downtown Boston, and lots of different cultures in that area. It was
Hmm.
formerly a Jewish area, and then after a while it became Black, Cuban, and all kinds of people. And my dad, when he and my mom first met up, he was working in a factory, right? And my mom, she was doing fashion. Then she became a nurse, and then went and got a degree and became a computer specialist. That was my grandmother's, her mom's, demand. But he used to come home and, after working and stressed, and he would be trying to explain something to us, and he would say, "Kabish," and as a kid, I thought that was, I didn't ask if it was a different language. It was just like, "Kabish," and you better say yes, you better say si,
Yeah.
and so it wasn't until years later that I actually realized that it was the Neapolitan version of capisci, which is "do you understand?"
Yeah.
in Italian. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Because he was working with Italian immigrants, at the
Yeah.
factory. And my mom, when she started with nursing, she would always tell us, don't, okay, don't be a jerk, but she would say, don't be a mashugana, you know, and then she would say sometimes I would say, well, which one should we do, Mom? Ah, segek samia. Oh, she did like this, moving her hands up and down. You get that it means, balance. I didn't know it was Yiddish.
Oh, interesting.
Isn't it interesting? And she was working at the Jewish Memorial Hospital. And it wasn't until I went to university in New York, right, in NYU, right,
Yeah.
and in the first year, my partner in the English writing course, I said, we would be joking, and he would be like, "Oh, don't be I'd say, "Don't be a mashugana," and he would say, "Why do you speak Yiddish?" He was Hebraic, and I said, "I don't speak Yiddish. What are you talking about?" And so he actually introduced to me, don't you know that these are Yiddish words? And talking about my mom's friends, don't you know that they were Jewish? And I was like, how do you know that they're Jewish? You were here. He said, you can tell by their last names. So I was really loved that it wasn't significant to my parents that they would say, this is a different language and this is a
Right.
different culture. And all my friends who were, grew up with me, especially from childhood, they know those words too, and they didn't know that they were different languages.
Yeah.
And my dad's he only had 3 friends, right? And one of them was my godfather, who was a police officer in Boston. And he would, come in. I think he started dating a gal, that's why he and his wife broke up. And he would come in, with his cop outfit on, and he said, "Listen, I told the babe, I said, hey, babe, assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum salam, alhamdulillah ala ti. And I loved him so much. And I loved the way he said that. Can you imagine the first time when I went to, um, um, it was in Saudi, it was in Kuwait, in Middle East. And someone said to me, assalamu alaikum. And I said, well, alaikum salam, alhamdulillah ala ti. And they stopped and they were shocked. And I was like, what's the matter? Did I say that wrong? It's just my uncle would say that. They said, your uncle was a beautiful person. your godfather was a beautiful person because that means something about the gift of God. And I was like, wow,
Mm.
who knew that, So
Ex-
sometimes we make things so significant, that we have to know exactly and do, but that sort of global engagement
mm,
it really lets you know that really that there's so much more that unites us than separates us. And that if you're willing to engage with people and also, use a bit of their language, then it warms their heart, it expands their zone, and the engagement with them is on a completely different level. Yeah.
yeah, the whole idea of being curious, right? And I mean, we're going to get into more of that because I can see how you've built this wonderful world of yours and work that you do because you became curious about yourself, and your work speaks about becoming an excellent communicator with yourself and, like you say, others all around you. But before we get into that, I want to ask you a little bit about like one thing, struck me when I was looking at your website and your work, and you talked about how it's a must that we get out of our routines in a sense. And it's kind of interesting because it wasn't that long ago that I wrote a post about habits and the books like Atomic Habits, and how routine is so important and how we build new habits. But I also see that we need to break away from that as well. And because we get so comfortable, right? And especially with COVID, it's sort of like it's almost made it worse because we weren't able to like really leave our houses, let alone leave let alone leave the country. And now, even as I plan a trip to Europe, I'm kind of like, um, maybe I should cut that a little shorter. I don't know. What if they don't like, what if they don't have here, there, or this there, or what if they, what if what if it's hard, like with booking flights and trains and whatever. And it's like, yeah, I can stay safe at home and do nothing and whittle away, or I can get out of my comfort zone. But speak more towards that. I want to hear how getting out of your comfort zone is the key to joy.
Yeah, well, sometimes when people talk about comfort zone, there's a couple of things that come up for me, and thank you for the question. One is that, have you ever had a pair of shoes that you've had for years, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe even they've got a little hole in them, or the heel is a little broken or whatever, but you're so comfortable in them, you don't want to change them. But is that a contribution to your feet? Is that a kindness to your feet? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Because maybe, if you've got a hole in it or something, even slippers, that it's not actually something that is nurturing to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
So just because something is comfortable doesn't mean that it's actually something that's working for you. And the trees, everything on this planet is actually transforming. I mean, and we can look at it as not in a good way when we talk about climate change, right?
Right.
And things, but there's nothing that stays the same. Change is the only constant
Mm.
in our lives on this planet, right? So when something is changing, and we're both in the northern hemisphere, and spring is in the air, right?
Mm-hmm.
And can you just imagine that the trees, the branches on a tree that had just had nothing on them, there must be some burst that has
Mm.
to occur in order for the leaves to come out. And then
Mm-hmm.
once we're in the summer and all the trees are full of leaves, we don't even remember. We're not looking at that tree and seeing, wow, I remember when you didn't have any leaves, honey, and when you were
Mm.
just getting those leaves coming out. So that period of transformation in our lives, which happens, every day or every
Mm-hmm.
21 days with the cells, right? And
Mm-hmm.
every 7 years or something with our changing in schools and ages and stuff like that, it may not be what we have defined as comfortable.
Mm.
However, when you're looking for change in your life, when you're asking for change in your life, when you would like something else to show up, right? Something else to, as we say, I've heard you talk about manifest, you
Mm-hmm.
know, how it shows up. And that's what manifestation is, how something shows up, right? Is thanks to, God, Allah, Buddha, the stars,
Mm-hmm.
the angels, the universe, um, and what we can do to activate that and to have more ease with that change is up to us.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're just in an advice, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're feeling discomfort, right? Know that change is in the air.
Mm-hmm.
When you're feeling very discomfortable, the change you've been asking for and are desiring, even if it's not cognitive, you're not
Mm-hmm.
cognitively aware of that, right? Is on the verge of coming through. And sometimes we are so uncomfortable that we want to scream.
Mm-hmm.
This is the question. We use this question in Access Consciousness, which is an amazing tools. Okay, before you burst out of control, is this the change that I have been asking for showing up in a different way than I expected?
Mm-hmm.
And the millisecond after you ask that question, if your breathing changes, if you relax a little bit, know that, okay, universe, thanks. Okay, let's see what's going to show up that is
Right.
beyond my wildest expectation, that is beyond any structure, that I have been trying to put together, that
Mm-hmm.
actually is beyond any dream I've ever visualized. It
Yeah,
might be different. Yeah.
because we
So
haven't been there, right? We haven't been
yeah,
there.
we haven't been there, and maybe it's never existed before, you
Hmm.
know? Because when I say there's so much more that unites us than separates us, I mean, I see you've got a lovely nose, you've got ears, you've got a mouth, you've got probably some cells going on in your body, molecules in the cells, blood, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much more there's so much that we have in common, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the little bit that's different about us, that's our unique brand of magic. That
Mm-hmm.
is what is unique and different about that. And a lot of times we feel like trying to hide that or not feeling, right about that. But what if that is the fun and the play and the contribution we can be to the world, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Because if you weren't alive here and in a body, and it would be a different vibration on the planet.
Right. Yeah.
so what gift is it if you're willing to go beyond the average normal, and the same as everyone else zone,
Mm-hmm.
and burst into something that is the truth of who you are.
Mm. Nice. So, why don't you explain, I guess, or some of the tools that you use to help people realize that uniqueness about themselves and to be less in fear and more in, you know, like openness and surrendering to change.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been working for almost 20 years with some amazing tools of access consciousness, which is really about empowering people to know that they know. It's not about giving anyone the answer
Mm-hmm.
to their life. It's about really asking them questions that activate what they
Mm-hmm.
know, not only about them, but why they're here, what we're
Mm-hmm.
doing here. And I've also, thanks to that, have created some of my programs that invite people through communication with the 7 steps to flawless communication. I've got teachers around the world doing that too. And also with my latest book, Dancing with Riches, an
Mm-hmm.
invitation for people to see their difference. Do you?
Do I see my differences? Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, the more you look inside, you know, the the more interesting your life becomes. And yeah, accepting of all who you are. It just brings
Yes.
up your energy.
Absolutely. And when you recognize that about you, right, then you know that everyone else has it too. So it's
Mm-hmm.
an approach that you are when you meet someone that is beyond any judgment, or any expectation. It's like you said, a curiosity. And I love
Mm-hmm.
that because curiosity keeps us young, keeps us alive, not marching toward, the grave,
Yeah.
but being really excited to live life and
Mm-hmm.
in a very engaging way, And when you're really, the invitation I am to people is to know that we are, who we are, and we have bodies, we have minds,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
we have spirits,
Mm-hmm.
and we're also that space between the cells and the molecules in our bodies, which is connected with everything and everyone on the planet and probably beyond.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're willing to have a harmony, a communion with your mind, your body, your spirit, your being, then the way you're living your life becomes quite different. And the way you are communicating with all the elements that you are allows you to enjoy life in a very different way. And it might continually invite you to go beyond your comfort zone. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
the way people communicate, everyone does it in a unique way. And if we're willing to see things from different perspectives,
Mm-hmm.
and recognize that, well, that's just the way they talk. It might sound like judgment to other people, but it's actually just the way they communicate.
Mm-hmm.
And your communication with others is in the way you communicate. And that's what makes it flawless.
Well, explain that a little bit more because so if you're with someone who, if someone was listening, like a third person was listening to your conversation with another person, let's say it's a couple, and one of the partners might come across as severely judgmental of the other person and saying, if you would just do this and if you would just do that, our relationship would be so much better. To me, that sounds judgmental and critical. So how would you how would you repair that communication between the couple then, knowing or saying, just describing what you just said?
Right. Well, I love that question because there's something in that we talk about in Access, and we call it the 5 elements of intimacy, and it doesn't actually have to do with sex,
Mm,
because then there's 6 elements of sex, but there's, that have very little to do with copulation. All of them are different, but this 5 elements of intimacy, and there is a book that talks about it. The first element is honoring you first. And I always say that about communication. Communication always starts with us, you
mhm,
know? So if you were, just in response to your quick response to your question, if you were going to intervene in that conversation, um, I suggest you have clarity about what your objective is, what your target is, what is it that you would like your intervention there to create. Because
mhm.
if you're clear about that, then you won't do the exact same thing that whoever spoke
Exactly.
was, which is say something that is offensive to someone, because
Right.
that will not create what you. So a lot of times we don't have clarity about what we'd like to. So
Mhm,
to accomplish. So what is it? What is the way that I can be an invitation for this communication to be
mhm,
much nicer, right?
mhm,
And also just to have clarity, is this the only way that whoever is talking, the guy, if the woman's talking to the guy is talking to the guy, or the woman's talking to the woman, whatever the relationship is that the only way they're willing to hear it?
mm,
I do some exercises with, so honoring you, the access tool of honoring you is
Mhm.
about not treating yourself with disrespect.
Mhm.
It's about knowing what works for you and what doesn't.
Mhm.
What detaches you, puts up your walls and barriers, what makes you feel wrong,
Mhm.
If you're doing something or engaging with someone who is doing that, that is not honoring you.
Mhm.
So if you're not honoring you, are you able to honor someone else?
Mhm.
So the more you're willing to know, okay, this doesn't work for me. This
Mhm.
is not making me feel good. This is not what I would like to have going on
Mhm.
in my life, right?
Mhm.
You're not saying that someone is wrong.
Right.
So you might be doing it perfectly for you.
Mhm.
That's fine. I'm just
Mhm.
saying what works for me. So if
Mhm.
if you'd
Mhm.
like to discuss it, maybe we
Mhm.
can find a different way to engage with one another.
Mhm.
If you're not interested in discussing it and perhaps making a change,
Mhm.
then that's okay. I'm not making
Mhm.
you wrong. It
Right.
just doesn't work for me. You need to probably go somewhere else. And it's just a different approach. I really love that this tool. So, and trust you is the second element of intimacy. Trust you that sometimes you'll get angry,
Mhm.
sometimes you'll get bored, sometimes you will respond in a different way to people.
Mhm.
But don't think, oh my goodness, it's gonna be. I have to do it the way I think I should do it. No, trust
No.
trust that you're gonna do what you usually do,
Mhm.
unless you choose something different.
Right.
So when
So.
you trust you trust someone else. So if somebody's having that conversation, like you were saying, you trust that that's the way they communicate,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
if they change, wow, you'll be pleasantly surprised, but you won't be going into judgment of them. So once you're honoring yourself, it's so much easier to honor someone else. And so instead of, you know, flashing back at them, saying, you know
Mhm.
what, dear, excuse me 1 second, if you can just communicate this to me in a different way, I really would love to hear it and see
Mhm.
what you really are aware of. But if
Mhm.
you have to talk to me like that, it just doesn't work for me.
Right. Yeah. So it's
And see what shows
honoring.
up.
It's honoring your feelings. It's also taking responsibility for your feelings. I think that's very important too. And knowing that, like you said, I might have this wrong. I yeah, but and I'm welcoming the thought of me being wrong right now, but as I feel right now, it's just not feeling right.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and it's not about you being wrong. You can't, what I always say is you cannot get you wrong.
okay.
You can't. There's nobody who does you better than you.
Hmm.
There's nobody. Your job is taken by you. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
it's not that you're wrong. It's just what's showing up for you. And if someone is interested in engaging with you and communicating with you, and you're not going into reaction or resistance to them,
Hmm.
and it's a very different approach, and it
Hmm.
may take a moment, but just as long as you're not feeling wrong, then you don't have to give a flashback at someone,
Hmm.
and it really is, stand up for you, have your back,
Hmm.
because if you are supporting you, then you are available to support so many other people.
Okay.
And communication, the way we communicate with people is quite unique. I mean, I tell you, like once with my husband, for example, right? We're having we're sitting having a conversation about something I was working on with the business, and he was saying, you really need to do it like this. You really need to do this because this is the best way to do it, and this is blah blah blah. And I, like you were saying, I said, I am not doing it that way. I am going to continue doing it this way. And he was like, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I mean, you're great at business. Your business is great. This is just the way I'm communicating my ideas. I mean, don't get upset,
Right. Right.
And that was so many years ago. And I was like, wow, that's just the way, he's communicating it. It's not making me wrong. So how much do we immediately go into self-doubt, self-judgment, you know what I mean? Lack of, self-esteem
Right.
by the way someone's communicating to us. And that's what I'd like to invite people with this, 7 steps to flawless communication program, to invite people to look at things from others' perspectives. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Somebody is being cranky, somebody is, yelling at you, somebody is,
Mhm.
They might be having a bad day. You
Yeah.
know, it's a
Yeah.
period, depending on the age range too. It's a period where people, their parents might be going through suffering, the kids might be,
Mhm.
having some issues going on. So when you encounter them for the first time and they're cranky,
Mhm.
people are so much in self judgment that they
Mhm.
don't have time to be judging you. You know
Right.
what I mean? Their time
Yes.
is so occupied with
Yes.
judging themselves. So if you're aware of that, and this is a way
Yeah.
to look at things from other people's perspectives, if you're aware of that, you'll be like,
Mhm.
oh, how's everything going? How you
Mhm.
doing? Did you have
Mhm.
a good day?
Mhm.
Can I get you a cup of tea?
Mhm. Mhm.
And then they relax and they're like, yeah, I'm so sorry I started with that. I just did blah, 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 blah. And so
Right.
they go into, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
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 And
It's and that's the second part of, I think, interaction that's so important, is not just curiosity but also compassion, I think, is what you're saying. Like, let's see this person as, a beautiful person, and see where their yeah, mood is coming from, their low energy is coming from, and let's just give them a chance.
yeah, well,
And
just to have an awareness also that it's usually not about you.
oh yeah.
It's usually about them. And the truth of who people are, or who they be, as we say,
Mhm.
infinitely to be, right?
Mhm.
um, is beautiful, is
Mhm.
beautiful. Uh,
Mhm.
Now, that might not be what they're choosing
Mhm.
in their life,
Right.
and so
Right.
we all have that 360-degree capacity. We can be,
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
angels embodied, and we can be, devils embodied as well. And what people are choosing is up to them.
Mhm.
They have a certain capacity. Sometimes we want to say, come on, all you have to do is do this.
Right.
But they have to be willing to choose it. And so we cannot choose for them. We can only be an invitation for them. And you can set the table and have the most lovely things to dine with, and the most lovely atmosphere. But if people want to come to the dinner, that's up to them. And it's not
Mhm.
that you're wrong if they choose not to. So
What
when you're in a conversation with someone and they're still choosing to be aggressive, I mean, it can be so much about what they're just choosing, not, their history and all that. Yeah, it could be with that too.
Mhm.
The important thing that is that they can't make you wrong. They may consider that you're wrong, but you can't get you wrong, you know?
Right.
So when you
Yeah.
function from that perspective, the way you are approaching others is like, okay, that's what you're choosing. Let me know if you change your mind.
Mhm.
Give me a call. And if I change my mind, then we can talk. Yeah.
Right. Right. Um well, as you were speaking, I was thinking about something. Okay, so I think what you're saying is, y- people have to get to that point in life that they want change, right? And that they need to be extremely, because it's not easy, like we're saying, like, I mean, to get out of our routines, to get out of our paradigms, to get out of our um, ingrained ways of doing things that have been instilled in us as a child. How when they what is, in your experience, what have people, you know what has made them decide, I want this, and I want this now, I want this bad enough? What do you feel is sort of the pivot for them?
Well, there's so many different levels of
Yeah.
change. It might be
Mm.
so subtle.
Mm,
The
good
thing, the
point.
invitation that I like to be for people is, like I said before, to connect with themselves,
Mm,
to know what it is that is nurturing for your body, not because it was something you ate all your life, or because it was something,
mm,
running all the time, or playing tennis, or,
mm,
eating certain types of food. You know what I mean?
mhm,
Um, to when you're connected with you, and like I said, your communication always starts with you. When you're connected with you and you're willing to see what your vibration is, What's in line with your vibration? What is it that brings you joy? What is it that makes you smile inside and even out? What warms your heart? What excites you, and
Mm-hmm.
delights you, and brings you joy and makes it. It may not be easy, but it gives you ease. You love doing
Mm-hmm.
that. You know what I mean? And it increases the
Mm-hmm.
abundance, even if you're in your home, like you were saying,
Mm-hmm.
during the couple of years of lockdown. Even
Mm-hmm.
if you're in your home, what gives you delight there?
Absolutely.
Is it so once you recognize that it may be material things or physical projects and things like that, but beyond the structure of that physical project or that those material things, there's a vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're willing to connect, your body lets you know that. Your body lets you know when you're hungry, when it wants to sleep, when it wants to
Mm-hmm.
go and wash the hands, as the British say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It lets you know
Right.
that. So if you're willing to go, a lot of times people say, "Oh, I don't really know. I'm not in connection with my body." Yes, you are. We all
Mm-hmm.
are,
Mm-hmm.
and we were born that way. And some of the things that have gone on in our lives have, detached us from ourselves, and
Mm-hmm.
from our bodies and from, having that harmony. So the invitation is with really easy things and whatever works for you. You know what I mean? Waking up and doing a mantra,
Mm-hmm.
all of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory is the mantra of access. My uh, there's so much more that unites us, separates us. I have a new song and I'll share it with you soon. It's coming out, my video on it,
Mm.
Dancing with Riches, based on my second book title,
Nice.
dancing with the riches of our lives, knowing what those riches are. So, whatever it is that you can do in the morning when you wake up to connect you with you, how your day shows up is
Mm-hmm.
very different. Is how it
Mm-hmm.
what manifests and how it manifests is very different. And once you have a connection with that, the change that you will be asking for in your life is to have more of that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And what you've identified as comfort may actually bore you a bit, but you'd
Mm-hmm.
rather be bored or, rather than being agitated or
Mm-hmm.
excited or out of your comfort zone,
Mm-hmm.
so many people have done a few articles on that, think that if they take a risk, they're going to lose something,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but that's one side of the coin. Risks is about maybe winning something.
Yeah.
And as
Possibility.
Nelson Mandela said, you cannot, the former head of South Africa, you cannot lose. You either win or you learn something, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're willing to really engage with yourself first, and some people think, well, engaging with myself, isn't that egotistical? Isn't that, egocentric? Is that
Mm-hmm.
just all about me? It's if you are enriched and glowing from the inside out and feeling joy and comfort beyond your wildest dreams, how much is that a gift to anyone and everyone you encounter? Even the grass you walk on. As I always say,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh, please walk on me. There's so many people who are so intense and so, pounding on me. Please walk on me, and the flowers that, go by. Oh, let me shine for that person. Let me shine for that person because they're actually recognizing me. Let me shine for them,
Mm-hmm.
So how much of it, not only to yourself, but also and your body and your mind, and your what you're creating in your life, but everyone and everything that you engage with um, benefits from your harmony with yourself. So it does all start with you, Di.
Absolutely. I think what you just described so lovely there is, even myself, like I woke up this morning and not every morning, like we have to be realistic, not every morning, I'm normally someone that just jumps out of bed and just, let's begin the day. But I was feeling a little funky this morning. I don't know why, but I was. Um, but what you described there is that even in those funky moments, you can still, elevate yourself very easily in I think what you're talking about is appreciation. Like when you said, noticing the green of the grass and the the colors of the flowers, and they're all bidding for your attention if you would just open your eyes to it and stop, and get out of your head. um Even today as I speak on, what is it, April 6th, like I look outside and there's flurries, I mean, it shouldn't be this way. Like we've had a horrible winter here, and it just, Mother Nature doesn't want to lose her grips on us, for whatever reason. But that's okay, because in my immediate environment I can find many different points of beauty, and just focusing. And when you described, thinking about, you know things that bring you joy, or visualizing what does joy mean to me, and as you were describing it, I mean, I couldn't help but smile as you were describing it, because it just, once you get into the energy and the feeling of that, it's, and surrender to that, and embrace that, it's very easy to do.
Yes. And whatever way works for you, there's no wrong way
Mm,
in the morning. But if you're willing to dedicate, there's about, 1,440 seconds in a day. So if you are willing to dedicate 10 seconds to you in the
mm,
morning, you might want to do breathe in, breathe out, put your hand on your heart and see if you can perceive it beating. A lot of times we're so disconnected. 10 seconds,
mm,
you know, and you might do 10 seconds at a time, and just
mhm.
before you get up, even it's like, no, I can't wait to get up because I have to go do something. 10 seconds.
Yeah.
How long does that take? And just to dedicate that to you. And maybe that's what Mother Nature's knocking on, our door about when there's
Mhm.
huge, rain and wind. And I've got lovely, I'm so grateful to have moved, years ago from an apartment with a little teeny balcony to a place with a garden. Because
Mm,
during the 2 years of the lockdown, it was the first time, like you said, I wasn't traveling in the
mhm,
month of March, April, May, and I worked on my garden, you know,
mm,
and really just engaging with nature in an amazing way. And
mhm.
even this 2 years later, this at the end of March, there was like 8 days of rain, and the first thing is, oh come on, not 8 days in a row of rain. And then I was like, okay.
Yeah.
In the beginning of April showers bring May flowers.
Yes.
And what is this washing and clearing
Mm,
and opening up to? What is nature actually really the cycle it's going through,
mhm,
So the moment it's so simple to connect with nature and the
mm,
nature that we are. I did my first lines in the Dancing with Riches book. I talk about connect. The first chapter is connecting with you, and then the second about your body, and then about with other people, and then with money and business. Right? Those are the Dancing with the Riches. But the first chapter, I talk about how I came back from lots of travel, and I was like, oh, I got to go help my garden. I got to go, help nature. I've got to go and let me go and put my hand on my favorite tree and give and
mhm.
give. And I wasn't feeling anything. I wasn't perceiving anything. I was like, oh my goodness, I've lost my capacity to feel.
Oh,
I was like, oh my goodness, what happened? Wait a minute. Okay, my name is Kass. Okay, I haven't lost my capacity to perceive. It is true. Okay.
yeah.
And it was so funny. Anyway, so I write about that. And at a certain point, there's these doggies next door
Mm,
who are usually barking. And I look over at them and they're not barking. They're looking at me with their head tilted to the side as if to say, really? Really?
Yeah.
You've been away so long, you think you have to give something to us? Nature? What if you are willing to receive from us? Boom, boom. All the walls and barriers and that, aggression, like I've got to do it, just melted away. And I just started laughing. And they were like, huh, good thing. And they just walked away. No barking, just walked away,
Yeah.
happy. And
Yeah.
so sometimes we think we have to give, we have to.
Yeah.
But what is it that we're actually willing to receive, and
Mm-hmm.
to allow to be nurturing and, nourishing and really create some harmony with ourselves. And so it was just hysterical, and I loved it. And yeah, so whatever works for you,
Right.
that's something you have to do. It's actually something you have to be willing to be. And what
Yeah.
you have to be willing to be is the uniqueness and the greatness of you.
Mm. Yeah, in a lot of your photos, I noticed that your hand is on your heart, and I think it really speaks from, how perhaps you're losing, you're using more of, your heart to be rather than your brain or your intellect, right? We're often too much in our heads and not enough in our hearts, living through this world, and learning to read our hearts, learning to think from our hearts, right?
Yeah, well, more than yeah, and the thing that we have, what if our heartbeat were in vibration with the heart beating of the planet?
Mm-hmm.
So how quick, you know, does that get us connected to something so potent and so lovely and so full on in just a few moments? And sometimes, people don't feel their heartbeat right away. Sometimes we're so disconnected, we have to maybe put our finger on our pulse, you know what I mean? Or,
Exactly.
or something to just get there. And it's an in interesting and quick way to get connected with you and see how it shows up. That might be a nice thing in the morning for people, listening,
Mm-hmm.
just to do a couple of breathing and because maybe people do a half hour meditation or the sun salutes from yoga or whatever it is that they do, and they don't have time, so they skip that connection.
Mm-hmm.
10 seconds, just connecting there. and
Right.
and your intuition, when you're talking with your body, your body has, it's like a sensorial organism, and it's like antennas. So you might have something going on in your tummy, you know what I mean, or in your throat, and it might be something happening around the world that you're
Mm.
aware of, something that you're beyond time, you're perceiving about the future, or something that's showing up from your past, or you know what I mean, or some friend of yours that's looking for you or calling you out to you,
Mm.
all of that stuff, right? So if you
Mm-hmm.
are connected with you, and your question was about, what if we're not looking for change? Well, what if the change is going from stuck to in movement? you
Mm.
know and even you don't ever have to leave your town, your home, your job, any of that. I once, well, a guy who had worked with, he was cleaning, a janitor. Do you say janitor?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know
you
what?
janitor.
Okay,
Yeah.
fine. It's talking in different languages.
Yeah, I know.
um, and a great musician too. And so he said, oh, I have to go to work. I said, oh, really? Well, you're not just doing music? No, no, I'm a janitor. I said, oh, how is that for you? He said, oh, I absolutely love it. He said, there is no one who cleans a floor like I do. And when I clean the windows in the executive's office and he has a meeting, he is shining bright with all of his clients because thanks to my windows, which are so clean.
Oh,
And I was like, bless you.
no kidding.
How connected is he with himself, you know? And he does the music and he does, but and what a gift is that? So even if you're, you know,
Yeah.
we do I do you know, the business training with the communication, all 7 steps communication. Like how do you work with your team members? How do you, you know, encourage and honor your employees? And how do you not resist your bosses? You know what I mean? Just working with
Yeah.
different levels, and there's so many different ways to look at that, but you've got to be connected with you and recognize what your genius is, your unique
Mm.
brand of magic is what I call it. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, magic is definitely, in the air. Miracles are in the air, or are surrounding us all the time. That's how I feel.
Yes.
If we just open up to it, if you know,
Yes.
I think maybe more miracles aren't. I was thinking about this the other day. Maybe we don't hear of more miracles because people aren't opening up themselves to have them happen, right? Like just the not using their imagination, but we don't know what we don't know. And I think what you're saying about becoming more curious about yourself and looking inwards and celebrating all the uniqueness of who you are would allow more miracles to happen, or to be described, or you know
Yeah, I'm not
shown.
sure that miracles are, describable because, we
Mm.
talk, we invite what energy, space, consciousness, choice, magic, mystery, miracles, and possibilities, you know? But
Mhm.
when miracles are beyond definition, they're beyond the five, senses, the smelling, the seeing, the
Mm.
hearing, the
Hmm.
tasting, the touching. It's actually when you're willing to engage with that sixth sense, your
Mm.
intuition, your gut feeling,
Mhm.
with your body, that actually communicates that to you. What shows up as if by magic, is the
Mm.
miracles. And if you're willing to smile there and just say, wow, look at this, look what I've helped
Y
create in
yeah.
in my life, without needing to define it, because definition is sort of like, fine tuning it, and then
Right.
it becomes structured. And so when you're like, thank you for the miracles.
Right. So
And
you're
even
you're
the small ones, the small, the little things in
oh,
your body and your heart and your tummy and your smile, and you get that. And connecting with you is yourself and your body and your being and your energy is something that lets you know, whoo, ting, just got a
right.
little ting, bing, and then somebody will go by and beep a horn at a certain time, or you'll hear a bell ring or something, where the universe, ching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, yeah, so what you're saying is the universe is responding to the little miracle that you've created inside you, the feeling, you know.
Well, what it is the way that it is identifiable or recognizable is very that miracles are occurring and showing up is different for everyone, depending on what your form of communication is, because communication isn't just about talking to others or getting your point across. It's also a minimum of a two-way street. So it's actually you receiving information, right? And how
Right.
is it that you receive it? Maybe, if you're looking to the right, something showing up on the left is not going to be working for you. So what is the way that when miracles are occurring? You've
Hmm.
heard that I'd rather live my life believing that magic and miracles were in the world, and perhaps dying and finding out it wasn't true,
Hmm.
as opposed to living my life and deciding it's not true. There's no magic, there's no miracles, and then dying and finding out, oh my goodness, there was magic and miracles all around. Why didn't I know it? Right. So,
Mhm.
and which would be a happier life, and
Right.
it never, ever, shows up the way you think it's going to. That's what Dr. Dane here, he's a co-creator of Access Consciousness. He says it never shows up the way you think it's going to. And it's so true. And it just makes you laugh if you're willing, just like you were saying. I love what you said. If you're willing to recognize the miracles and say, oh my goodness, I never expected that. I met a
Yeah.
guy once, an American guy, and at it was so lovely in the airport, and the I was leaving Italy, going to visit my mom who was ill in Boston, and the snow was not allowing us to take off. And I was like, it's a great question from Access. What is right about this that I'm not getting? You can
Yeah.
tell it's not a question. I'm like, really, yeah, oh my goodness, I've got to get home and see my mom. What is right about this? What is it that I'm not getting?
I like
And
that
here,
question. What is
it's
right
a
about this?
there's so many fabulous questions. You could check them out on
Okay.
yeah. And accessconsciousness.com. And all of a sudden, the miracle that shows up is this American guy talking in Italian with such a really huge American accent and screaming really loud. I mean, talking really loud. And I'm like, oh no, universe, this cannot be.
Right.
This is not the guy, right? This is not the thing that is the right, the miracle or
Right.
something, right? Darling, it never shows up the way you think it's going to. We had lunch, we had a dinner together, and then he started talking about he's had to get to go to Boston to see his mom who's ill, and I'm like, oh my goodness, am I like channeling to him? He's
Right.
saying what I was thinking. So that's how we get in, and, talked, and we went to dinner together. Maybe 3 months later, he came to Rome with his wife and kids, and gave me a call, and he heard my voice, and he said, oh my goodness, where are you? I've got to come and see you right now. And he came to see me, and in 10 minutes, he did this expansion exercise with me. Um, and I've included them in my 7 steps. It's step 6 and 7. Yeah, expanding your zone, really easy things, Tai Chi, but I do it a little
Mm.
different in the book, and connecting with the earth. And he said, Cass, I never heard your voice like I did on the phone. He said, completely disconnected. I don't know who you're working with or what your job is here, because I was at working. He said, but please, please do not ever let anyone disconnect you from you like this again. Okay. Now I got to go back to my wife. And I said, oh, it's just very difficult. They're not kind. There's not a kind person. And she's really stressed out. He said, yes, but please, I could hear it in your voice. Right. And so it was a lovely exercise. And it's a Tai Chi exercise about just connecting with your inner self in your body and using your 2 fingers to separate them one from the other and open up that space in your body at the same time as you're separating your fingers, separating the lockdown that you're being in your body, and expanding that beyond your physical structure so that you're actually still connected with the world. And then, going to the core of the planet with your mind and pulling up the energy from the core of the planet all the way up, breaking the surface, coming into your feet, up through your legs, up through your body, past your heart, and up and out of your head.
Mm.
And so that expansion and that connection takes just a couple of moments. And I've got some videos on YouTube with doing that too. And can you imagine the miracle that showed up a few months before in the airport with someone that, I was like, oh no, it couldn't possibly be this. But
Yeah.
if you're willing to see the magic, perceive, right, the
Right.
energy, the
Right.
space, the consciousness, choose to go to, to say hello to someone, right?
Right.
Then the mystery and the miracles and the
Oh
possibilities
my
expand
gosh.
beyond this reality.
It,
So just one of the many
so,
examples.
so
Yeah.
true. So true. Just the faith and the belief it all starts there. It's okay. I know I need to leave you go. You have a very tight
Never let
schedule.
me go. I'd be so lost if you went away.
And also beautiful amongst all your other talents. I mean, you also have a beautiful voice. So my goodness, but you have a massive amounts of tips and programs, and I definitely will encourage all the listeners to check you out, because I've really enjoyed this, Cass. It's been so
Thank you
nice.
so much too. Thank you for the invitation. I've never done it in the same way with anyone. So your unique invitation is delightful
Oh,
and delicious. And you think you can. I know you can.
yes, yes, absolutely. I wanted to ask you that question too, but I mean, I think it's been your whole life of I think I can. And
Yeah. Well, knowing that you can, accessing your knowing, and this is what we invite people to with Access Content, you empowering people to know that and
mm,
so I really would just love to, leave with saying that you don't have to do everything, know how to do everything, but what is it that is unique and different about you? If you're willing to acknowledge it, would actually invite more of those miracles and that magic, not only into your life, but open up that space for the world and for
mm,
everyone else to find it. Yeah. So
mm.
I'll share my song with you, my Dancing with Riches song, as soon as we get it out.
Okay, it
It's
sounds great.
coming. It's
Just
coming.
what a beautiful way to end the episode, though. I just, what you just said in that last couple sentences just made me smile from ear to ear. I love it.
Mm.
Okay. Well, thanks again, Cass. And for everyone else, have a great week. Thanks once again for joining me on another great episode of I Think I Can podcast. If you liked it, please subscribe below so you don't miss out on any future episodes. And until next week, treat each day like it was your last, because each new day is a privilege that we shan't take for granted. Cheers and have a great week. Bye-bye.